The suffering sits inside of you. It doesn't matter where you try to go. It doesn't matter if you think you are postponing it. No. You carry it all the time with you. At the end of this thinking pattern right now, I only had one solution. What to do with the suffering? Well, you need to face it. That is the only thing I came up with. You need to look it in the eye. Whatever is so fearful to you, whatever seems so impossible for you to do, whatever is like really challenging you, that is the one made as a challenge for you in this lifetime to face it. Some people have the ability to face it, some people do not have the ability to face it. Why? Two very important things are missing. Number one, the ability to let go is one very, very big part. The skill, the willingness to let go, the fact of letting go is number one. And number two, to have courage to face the fear, to face the truth, to face the darkness.
Spread love, man.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We've got some really fascinating material to dig into today. We're going to be taking a deep dive into the teachings of SHI HENG, a Shaolin master, on the topic of suffering.
Yeah, his background, blending those Shaolin traditions with Buddhist philosophy, it offers a really unique perspective on how we can approach, suffering in our lives.
I mean, he doesn't shy away from the reality of suffering, does he? He talks about loss and those unfulfilled desires that sting and all those everyday things we just all seem to struggle with.
He really doesn't. It's like he's saying, look, suffering in all its forms, it's part of being human. Like, it's woven into the very fabric of impermanence. That's this core Buddhist idea. And because things are always changing, we're always experiencing loss, which, especially if we're clinging tightly to things, that leads to suffering.
It makes you think, But he goes beyond just saying suffering is a fact of life, right?
Yeah.
He challenges that really human urge we all have to avoid pain, no matter what.
Exactly. SHI HENG points out that it's that very attempt to avoid suffering that actually just makes it worse. He uses this powerful image, saying that suffering, it lives within us.
So it's like, no matter how much we try to run and hide, we can't outrun it.
Precisely. It's like our shadow, it's always there. You can't escape it because it's not some external enemy. It's part of us internally.
So, okay, we can't avoid it?
Yeah.
Then what? How do we deal with this reality with suffering? What does he say?
Well, he kind of throws down this gauntlet, right? He says, you got to face the darkness head on. He even uses this phrase, the 99.9% unknown.
The 99.9% unknown. What's that all about?
So think of it like this. It represents everything that exists outside of our normal perception or understanding. He's basically saying, hey, step outside that comfort zone, explore the unknown territories inside yourself, too.
So like embracing the unknown, even the parts of ourselves that maybe we're a little afraid to look at.
Exactly. And this is where all that Shaolin training really comes into play. He connects it, to facing physical pain in martial arts. It's like that, but for the mental and emotional suffering we all go through.
That's interesting. So how does that Shaolin training help us with, regular suffering?
Well, in Shaolin practice, you don't avoid physical pain. It's seen as like this pathway to getting stronger, more resilient. He says, apply that same idea to your mental and emotional challenges. SHI HENG is saying, cultivate that courage, that resilience whenever you face suffering, whatever form it takes. It's about, standing strong even when things are uncomfortable and finding the strength to move forward even when it's hard.
That's got to take a lot of courage to do that.
It does. He's really clear that courage and the ability to let go, those are the two key ingredients for this whole journey, facing that darkness. And letting go, it's connected to the specific Buddhist term, upekkha.
Upekkha. What's that?
It often gets translated as equanimity or even-mindedness. It's about developing this inner balance, a kind of stability, even when things are tough. SHI HENG believes that having this upekkha, it's essential if you want to ride the waves of life, the ups and downs, without being totally swept away by your emotions.
So like finding that calm center inside, even when everything around you is going crazy.
Precisely. And it takes practice to develop upekkha. It's about learning to watch your thoughts, your emotions without judging them. See their impermanent nature, and detach from that need to cling to them.
Sounds easier said than done, right? Especially when you're actually in the middle of suffering.
For sure. It takes effort. But you can learn it, cultivate it through things like mindfulness practices, like meditation. And that's another core part of Shaolin and Buddhist teachings,
And he talks about how powerful our thoughts are too, right? Like how they shape our reality. What does that mean exactly?
Yeah. He's suggesting that, well, our thoughts really do have an impact on our experience. And it goes deeper than just like positive thinking. It's more about how our perceptions, beliefs, all those interpretations we make, they really do shape the reality we experience.
If we just focus on all the negative stuff, chances are that's what we'll see and experience more of.
Exactly. But on the flip side, if you work on a more positive, open mindset, you're more likely to see those opportunities, experience more joy. It's about making the choice to focus on what gives you power, what helps you grow, even when things are tough.
Wow, this is heavy stuff. It's almost like he's saying we have this responsibility to watch our thoughts, not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us.
You're getting it. He's emphasizing that we have this power to shape not just our own experiences, but also the world we all live in. It's a pretty big idea, It makes you think about the ripple effect of our thoughts and actions.
And he doesn't just leave us hanging with this idea, does he? He gives us actual tools, techniques to manage our thoughts, to break free from those negative patterns.
He does. And we'll definitely get into those practical strategies. But before that, there's this other fascinating practice he talks about for understanding ourselves and how we relate to suffering. He calls it the mirror exercise.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me about this mirror exercise. What is it, and how does it help with facing our suffering?
It's all about self-observation, but without any judgment. And, well, it involves actually looking at yourself in a mirror.
Sounds simple enough, but I'm guessing there's more to it than just that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's about looking beyond just your reflection. It's about facing your inner landscape, all your thoughts, emotions, even those parts of yourself you might try to hide or deny. It's about being really honest with yourself, seeing yourself, flaws and all. Shi Heng Yi even ties this back to a Buddhist teaching. He says, the sun, moon, and truth cannot be hidden.
Wow, that's powerful. Like a reminder that no matter how hard you try, you can't really outrun yourself, can you?
Nope. And by facing those parts of ourselves, the ones we might want to keep hidden, that's how we start to unravel that suffering, the stuff that's holding us back. Shi Heng Yi believes that, this self-observation without judging yourself, it's a key to understanding and eventually breaking free from pain, the unnecessary kind.
So it's about acceptance, not just of the good stuff, but the shadow side too.
Yeah, totally. It's about recognizing that those shadow sides, the stuff we think is bad or unacceptable, it's also part of what makes us whole. And by integrating those parts, bringing them into the light, that's how we heal and move on.
This is all really insightful. But how do you actually do this mirror exercise? What does it look like?
Shi Heng Yi says, find a quiet place where you can be alone, just you and a mirror. Stand or sit in front of it and just observe. And not just how you look, try to look deeper. What emotions are there? What thoughts are going through your head? What sensations are you feeling in your body? Just notice, don't judge.
It sounds a lot like mindfulness, like when you meditate, bringing that same non-judgmental awareness to your inner world, just like you might focus on your breath or your body.
You got it. It's that same presence, that observation, allowing yourself to just be with whatever comes up, no need to change it, fix it, anything.
I'm starting to see how Shi Heng Yi approaches suffering, the whole picture.
Yeah.
It's not about pretending it's not there. It's about leaning in, facing it head on, and changing how we relate to it.
Right. And a lot of times that transformation, it involves changing your perspective, moving away from that analytical mind, the one that gets us stuck in worries and overthinking, and moving towards a more felt sense of experience.
That reminds me of how he talks about shifting from thinking to feeling, like doing things that simplify, that quiet, that analytical mind.
Yep. Those practices, they're important. Shi Heng Yi, he suggests stuff like art, being out in nature, or doing those Shaolin disciplines like Tai Chi, Qigong, or meditation. But he says the specific activity, it's not the main thing, it's the intention behind it.
So it's about finding whatever helps us get out of our heads, those thought loops, and connect with life more directly.
Exactly. It's about experiencing the world through your senses, through feeling, instead of overthinking everything.
And I bet those practices help with managing those negative thoughts we talked about before, too.
Oh, absolutely. When you're stuck in those loops, those negative thoughts, it feels like there's no way out. But by doing things that bring you to the present moment, you create space for those thoughts to settle down and for a new perspective to come through.
It goes back to letting go, doesn't it? Letting go of all those thoughts, beliefs, patterns that are causing us to suffer.
You got it. Shi Heng Yi really emphasizes letting go. And not just of physical stuff like possessions, but also those internal burdens we carry around. Grudges, regrets, Fears, anxiety, all that stuff weighs us down, keeps us trapped in those cycles of suffering.
Okay, we get it. Letting go is important. But how do we actually do it? How do you let go of those things that are causing so much pain?
He gives some really practical advice, techniques.
Mhm.
One is super simple. It's just labeling your thoughts. When you have a negative thought, you acknowledge it by saying, thinking.
Just thinking. Seems almost too easy.
It does, right. But what it does is create this little bit of space between you and the thought. It helps you realize, hey, this is just a thought. It's not the absolute truth. It's not who I am.
So it's like becoming an observer of your thoughts instead of getting swept away by them.
Yeah, exactly. And from that observer position, you can start to choose which thoughts are you going to engage with, which ones are you going to just let go of.
This makes a lot of sense. Any other techniques he suggests for dealing with those negative thought patterns?
He says it's really important to question those thoughts. When they pop up, ask yourself, is this even true? Is it helpful? Is it doing anything for me?
So instead of just believing everything you think, you gotta check if it's even real.
Exactly. And a lot of times when you really look at those negative thoughts, you realize they're coming from fear, assumptions, or stuff that happened in the past that might not even apply anymore.
Reminds me of how he talks about like carrying yesterday's argument into today. He says that just makes the suffering last longer.
Yeah, that's a good one. He compares it to holding a burning coal and expecting someone else to get burned. It shows how pointless it is to hold on to those negative thoughts and feelings. They only hurt us.
So how do we let go of those burning coals? What's that look like, practically speaking?
He suggests a few different ways. One is forgiveness, forgiving yourself and forgiving others.
Forgiveness, it's hard, especially when you've been hurt, really hurt.
He knows it's not easy, but he thinks it's crucial if you want to break free from that cycle of suffering. He says to approach forgiveness with compassion, understanding that everyone makes mistakes. Holding on to anger, resentment, it just hurts us in the end.
So it's not about saying what they did was okay. It's about freeing yourself from that pain, that resentment.
You got it. It's about choosing to let go of those negative emotions, to make space for healing, for peace.
He talks about gratitude, too.
Yeah, gratitude is like this powerful remedy for negativity and suffering. He says, focus on the good things, even the little things. Appreciate being alive.
It's about switching your focus, right? From what you don't have to what you do have.
Exactly. Seeing the abundance that's already there, even when things are tough.
This is all amazing, but what if you try all this stuff and you're still struggling? What if the suffering just feels overwhelming?
SHI HENG gets it. He knows there are times when the pain is just too much. He doesn't offer some easy answer, but he says it's really important to reach out for support when you need it. Talk to your friends, family, a therapist, a spiritual mentor, whoever. He reminds us we don't have to go through tough times alone.
That's so true. It's easy to feel isolated, alone when you're struggling. But remembering there are people who care, people who want to help, that can make a huge difference.
It really can. And support can be all kinds of things. Connecting with loved ones, joining a support group, getting guidance from someone you trust. The main thing is knowing that you don't have to face your challenges alone.
We've been talking about SHI HENG's ideas on facing suffering, and I think it's really clear that his teachings bring together this ancient wisdom and, practical techniques that can help us all navigate those tough parts of being human. Before we finish up today, I want to touch on that point about how everything's interconnected,
Mm-hmm.
Is that just recognizing that can actually help us feel less suffering.
Right. He's really emphasizing that we're not these isolated beings. We're part of this giant web of life, and we're all connected to each other, to everything around us. And it's a deep connection.
I can see how, changing your perspective like that, from feeling alone in your pain to seeing our shared humanity, how that could be comforting and even empowering.
It really is. It's like recognizing that interconnectedness. It reminds us that we're not the only ones struggling. Suffering's something everyone goes through. And when we extend compassion and understanding to others who are hurting, it can actually help us deal with our own pain, too.
That idea, shared humanity, compassion, it really sticks with me. It makes me think about what he said about with our thoughts, we create the world, which we talked about earlier. It's like he's saying we have a responsibility not just to ourselves, but to each other, to be aware of our thoughts and our actions because they have this ripple effect on everyone, on everything around us.
You got it. That's a key part of his message. SHI HENG is inviting us to become these, conscious creators of our reality individually and as a whole. It's not about ignoring the bad stuff, pretending everything's perfect. It's about acknowledging the hard things, embracing all of the human experience, and choosing to focus on what lifts us up, what makes us stronger, what makes the world a better, kinder place.
This has been such a thought-provoking deep dive. Shi Heng's teachings offer this really powerful path to becoming more resilient, finding inner peace, even a sense of liberation, even though life's always going to have challenges. So as we wrap things up, what would you say is the most important message our listeners should take away from his teachings?
Hmm. For me, it's that facing the darkness, instead of running from it, that's the way to true freedom. It's about building the courage to face your fears, your doubts, your pain, not as if you're defeated, but with this willingness to learn, to grow from it. It's about embracing everything that comes with being human and realizing that even when we're struggling, we have the power to choose how we react, to find meaning, and to cultivate a way of being that's stronger, more compassionate, and more empowered.
That's such a powerful message. It reminds us that our suffering doesn't define us. It's how we choose to respond to it that does. And as we've seen today, Shi Heng gives us a ton of practical tools, techniques, to help us deal with those difficult emotions and turn them into opportunities to grow.
He reminds us that true strength isn't about avoiding those uncomfortable feelings, but about having the courage to face them, the strength to learn from them, and the wisdom to let go of what's not doing us any good.
So to everyone listening, as you keep going on your journey, remember Shi Heng's words: embrace the darkness, cultivate courage, and practice letting go.
And don't forget, you're not alone. We're all in this together.
That's right. We'll be back soon with another deep dive, but until then, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep searching for those truths that help us all navigate this amazing thing we call life.